Hi, in this tutorial we're going to add a source layer to Qonda Vault. So a source layer is a feature service layer that has attachments enabled. So in the previous tutorials we set up our admin authentication. We also set up a linked server, and we set up a vault or a storage location for our sources. So from here we want to add a new source. So from the admin interface, click on the sources tab and click add new. We need to pick our server, which is our link server, and then we need to pick our type. So the type is basically the mode that Qonda Vault will treat the layer attachments in. So starting from the bottom, delete will download attachments and delete from the source. So this means it will offload all the attachments from the layer and keep them locally, but it will delete them from the source. So that means your layer will no longer have those attachments. Backup will simply download the attachments and leave the attachments in the source layer as they are. Placeholder will download all of the attachments and replace the attachments on the source layer with a placeholder, which is just a little gray image. This is useful if you want to reduce storage on or for the attachments on that layer, but you may want to restore them in the future. Placeholder is a lot smaller than the next option, which is shrink. So shrink is probably the most common use case. This will download attachments and replace image attachments with a smaller thumbnail. The size of the thumbnail can actually be controlled in the settings. So we'll pick shrink. We then need to choose where we want to store this. So we pick our vault, which is file system demo, and then we need to pick our service. So services, we can pick our service. It will list all services, but the layers will be filtered on whether they have attachments or not. So for example, if we choose sample world cities, there are no layers with attachments, so no layers will display in the layer drop down. So we're going to pick survey 12, and we're going to pick layer 0. Now some of the other options we can set, we can process videos and other attachments. So videos are obviously any videos from a phone that have been attached. Other relates to PDFs and Word documents and other documents other attachments which are not videos and are not images. So turning these off means that they will remain unaltered on the source layer, whereas if you have process video on, then obviously videos will be downloaded. In this particular case, they won't be replaced with a thumbnail, they'll just be replaced with a placeholder. And for other, same thing, if you have, for example, a PDF, it will be replaced with just a little image showing that it's a file document of some kind. In terms of authentication, there are two modes or two levels of authentication and authorization. So the first one is portal authenticate. This means that when somebody tries to access this Qonda Vault layer, it will prompt them to log into the portal that this source layer is associated with. They don't have to have access, they just need to have a an account or a username, a named user on that portal. If we enable the second option, layer authorize, this will check that the user has access to the source layer. So, for example, if you had a team of field workers collecting data, but you had another group that didn't have access to the source data, you may want to turn that off. Then any named user can access that, but they don't necessarily have to have access to the original source layer. Turning both of these off will mean that the Qonda Vault viewer won't require any authentication or authorization. This is obviously fine if you're on premise, but if you're in the cloud or internet facing, you want to have at least Portal Authenticate turned on. We'll leave both of those on for now. And lastly, every source layer that you configure is given a short code. This is just a random 8-character string, which we'll talk about later. So if we press save, you'll now see that we have that configured. Obviously we haven't updated it yet. We'll do that now. So if we want to manually run this, we can just click on it and press sync, and that will add it to the queue. So we get a confirmation, we just say yes, and it will be added to the queue. Now that's a manual sync. We can of course also go to the settings, and there is an update time over here which is set to 5 AM. So that means every 5 AM all of our attachment sources will be updated. And we can also set the number of update threads. So when you have multiple sources, you can simultaneously update a number of them if you want to. So if your machine has 4 CPUs, you could set the update threads to 4, and it will process 4 attachment sources at the same time. But obviously that will have an impact on the performance of that machine, so which is fine if it's running overnight. Okay, so that is busy updating in the background. We'll just need to wait for that to finish, and then we can come back and talk about some of these other things.